welcome to a celebration of Chardonnay and a masterful exponent thereof. Now, you don't have to go back too far in time when Chardonnay was vilified by many because basically you were drinking a pureed branch, you could spread it on toast. It was not everybody's favorite grape because a couple of styles put some people off, and Chardonnay's had some work to do to come back into a space of greater acceptance. Well, gee, has it done that job, because the grape I'm hearing more and more about from international wine critics out of South Africa when it comes to white wine is Chardonnay. And so today we celebrate a decade of Capensis and by extension a really wonderful new chapter of South African Chardonnay. And the person responsible for that, listen out for the very faint hint of an American accent. Graham, lovely to have you on the show in this celebration of what's been a remarkable decade, a wonderful story, and a great evolution of Chardonnay, which we'll come to because we have much Chardonnay to share over breakfast this morning. But we also have your story, because yours is a fascinating one of being a Cape Townian, finding your way into the wine industry, a little bit of time in France, graduating at Elsenburg, but then really finding your feet initially as a winemaker in California.
Yeah, look, I don't think it was. The California thing was a move, more of a personal move than a professional move. I was actually enjoying myself here. I was working for DGBs, running Bellingham, having a great time. But moving to the US was actually just an opportunity because I'd broken up with a girlfriend. and I thought to myself, this is a great way of kind of leaving that behind. And I left with a little black suitcase. I threw it out the other day. I should have kept it because it's such a part of it. It was a little black suitcase this big, and I jumped on a plane with a canoe paddle, and I thought, okay, well, it'll be 3 years and I can get over this sort of debacle that I've just gone through, and ended up being there for almost 20 years.
Have you ever phoned the ex-girlfriend to
No,
thank her?
I spoke to her once or twice, and I didn't thank her but not much more than that. And that was really the reason for going. It was never a case of, no, let me go and see I'm fed up with this place, I'm fed up with who I'm working for. It was never like that. It was never a case of just, like, it was an opportunity. And to work with a guy like, with Jess originally, and then Barbara, he runs the company now. It was an opportunity that I didn't quite comprehend the magnitude of what it meant until I really got there. And saw the length, like the breadth of this organization and what it means. And it was very difficult to get out of there once it's, and I'm still with them, so it hasn't changed. They've given me the opportunity to come back. So it's been a great ride, and it's an amazing company to work for.
This company, this organization is Jackson.
Yeah.
It's not as well known to many South Africans, perhaps, and yet it is, as you suggest, a rather substantial organization. Tell us a bit more about Jackson, why it has the success it does.
Well, they've had the number one selling Chardonnay in the US for the last 27 years straight. And I don't see it losing that position with Kendall Jackson, which is an amazing story behind itself. But with that, with that momentum that they had with Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, Vintners Reserve Chardonnay, they've built this portfolio which is almost impossible to replicate in the world of wine, and that's purchasing vineyards, purchasing incredible wineries across the globe. It was just California. It moved from there to Chile, I think, and then to Australia, and then Oregon, Bordeaux, Tuscany. We've gone into, obviously we're in South Africa with my little operation down here. We've gone into Canada. We've gone into England now as well. So the scope of what Barbara's built up and Jess and Barbara built up over the last couple of years has just been mind-boggling and staggering. And it's the attention to detail and the how can you put it, the desire to be world-class at every juncture that sets them apart, I think.
The quid pro quo of South Africans working abroad is, I think, wonderfully balanced. They get some extraordinary talent that tends to be far harder working than these sort of Australia, New Zealand types. But in return, you come back, when you do, as in your case, armed with this breadth of knowledge and this understanding of wine in a different space. How did that education shape who you are as a winemaker?
No, look, the business is the business there. It's truly a really, and a couple of guys will be pretty grumpy with me in the sense that sometimes the South African wine trade feels like a bit of a cottage industry. Everybody's kind of hustling a little bit and trying to sell their needlework to the next guy and a bottle of wine here, and it's a bit of a hassle. The business there is amazingly sort of business oriented. it's the metrics, it's all what you bring into them. But at the end of the day, what you really learn there is quality is all that counts. You cannot compromise on quality, because if you produce something of a lesser quality, it's still going to cost you the same to make. So you might as well just make the good stuff. And I think that's what sets the vast majority of the industry. We're the side of the industry we're involved in as Jackson Family Wines. Mediocrity just doesn't suffice. So if you've got problems in a vineyard, where it all starts, you replace that vineyard, because you have to, because that land is so expensive. It's no point in having an underperforming vineyard on a piece of ground that's costing you the money that it's costing you there. And I think that's what sets it apart. So when you bring it back here, you have to be completely and utterly focused on doing the right thing from the word go. And if you don't, you're going to suffer the consequences. Because the land prices are going up here in a pretty amazing sort of, the arc is incredible the way it's going up here, especially in the high-end areas.
So you discovered America, you'd learned all about the place you were now working, learned about American wine. The heart, I suggest, had been mended. How did the return to South Africa come about? How did the Capensis idea come about?
Well, Capensis was, Barbara came out here on a jolly. I think it was in 2007 or 2008. She came out here. She phoned me up. She said, "I've been at the Naples wine auction, and I was bidding on a trip to South Africa, and I won it. Now I've got to go. Where do I go to?" So I think it was with Johan Crick, the tennis player.
Yeah.
I vaguely remembered him as a kid. He played in 1 or 2 Wimbledon games or something like that. And I was like, Johan Crick, I can't. He's got nothing to do with the wine trade. But anyway, he's going to go take you. You might see a lion and a zebra and a giraffe. But if you go down to Cape Town, why don't you go have a look at 1 or 2 of these properties? Because I had friends working in these wineries, and one of them was a very close friend of mine, Adi Bardenhoff, at Rustenburg. So I tootled off to Rustenburg, and she was like bowled over by Rustenburg with, and Adi's laid it on there. And then she also went up to Uvumera. I had a close connection with the Whedon family at that time, and I asked her to go and visit Uvumera. She fell in love with Uvumera. So when to cut a long, convoluted story, we tried to go for Uvumera in, I think, 2012. We tried to make a go for it, and Barbara wanted to do something in South Africa, and we made a play for Uvumera. Didn't work out for a number of different reasons, and then we were sitting around. We'd come down as a little working group, the chief financial officer, myself, and the chief legal officer. And those 2 reprobates enjoyed a glass of wine. And hard to believe that the chief legal officer and the financial officer are probably two of the most fun guys in the company to go down to travel with. And we ended up sitting, we had lunch with Anthony Hamilton Russell. And we were sitting around in Amanus afterwards at the Marina Hotel having some serious gins and tonics. And we just said, well, let's just focus in on Chardonnay. Let's go and do this prospecting exercise. We had this idea. We traveled around the Western Cape for a week. And we just said, well, let's just go buy fruit. And we partnered up with Anthony Beck, who gave us facilities and all the rest out in Robertson, because it was very easy for them. And that's how we started. It was really just on a whim. We're actually talking about it today in a lot. It started off as a project, and now we've become a bloody winery. We started with this idea of like, maybe we can make a bit of South African Chardonnay. Barbara likes the area. She likes the visual of the place. And then, it ended up being, again, coming back to the reality of when you touch down in Santa Rosa again, and where the head office is, now the accountants get hold of you. Okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to make? What's the cost going to be? Like, how much is it going to, what's the investment going to be? What's our return going to be? And I think that's where we decided, okay, with all the experience that we have to go to the high end. There's no point in us actually just going in and having another $25 South African Chardonnay and sell a fair amount of it. It made no sense. For the company that we had to actually make a point. So we just said, okay, we're going to go in with an ultra premium South African Chardonnay. And talking about the tiger by the tail, nobody even knew about that at the stage. It was like, well, that doesn't even exist. I knew it existed because I'd worked with a couple of really, really talented people, worked with some phenomenal vineyards in the past, and I knew what South African Chardonnay was and what the capabilities of it was. So that made it quite easy in that sense to go and make world-class South African Chardonnay. And I wouldn't say we knocked the lights out right from the word go in 2013. We had a good start, not the best start. and I still regret one or two things. We'll talk about it when we taste the arc. But we stuck by it. We've stuck by our pricing, by our philosophy. We've had one or two bumps on the road, but the positives have far outweighed the negatives by a country mile. We've really exceeded all expectations in a lot of different ways, and I think we've set the stage for other people to join us. And Barbara, this is really her sort of project. Barbara's got some amazing projects that she puts her weight behind, and this is one of them. And she just said, we'll stick by it because a rising tide will lift everyone. So if we put it out there, a lot of people will come and join us at that price point. And I was like, well, okay, well. And I think you have to look in the books now. It's all happening. We're not the most expensive Chardonnay in the book anymore. There are a lot of people way above us, and which someone said to me the other day, I was like, shit, we've got to catch up. I was like, no, that's okay. We'll just stick to what we do, and we do it well. And if everybody wants to join us, they can. I'm happy with that. So, but bottom line is, we should become and are a powerhouse on the global Chardonnay stage, and we should celebrate that and talk about it a lot more as a group and as a production team. I know there's a lot of push behind this what do they call it, the Chardonnay. I know there's got a name for it. Andre Morgenthal's involved now, so and they're going to do some amazing stuff.
So there is your origin story of Capensis, how a broken heart has given us some of the best wine in South Africa. Where does Chardonnay sit now? We'll find out shortly. The changing face of Chardonnay in South Africa, from a grape that wasn't everybody's favorite to one that's commanding, in many cases, four-figure prices at the top end in South Africa, and just as importantly, is making a real splash right around the world, helped by names like Capensis, who with a little American influence and some South African magic are combining really effectively. You've got this understanding, Graham, of the Chardonnay of America, the Chardonnay of South Africa. You've spent time in France as well. You will have tasted Chardonnay from all over the world. It's a grape that has in the past had the capacity to alienate people when it, I don't think, has been made in the style that is best shown Chardonnay. But my feeling, certainly in South Africa, is we're in a space where we understand that it's the fruit that takes priority, it's the terroir we need to celebrate, it's the wood that needs to sit quietly in the background, playing a very much supportive role. And when we do that, we're able to show something really special.
Yeah, there's no question about that. You've got to, the wood thing it's an interesting conversation to have. I don't believe in Chardonnay without wood. I actually cringe when I see somebody actually labeling something unwooded Chardonnay, because you're alienating half you're capturing a little group, but you're also alienating a massive group of people who drink a lot of Chardonnay. Is still by far the number one white, sales item on the globe today. So you can't alienate people by saying unwooded. But if you can't completely make an abomination of a wood soup, I think you've said it quite well. If you can spread it on toast, it's a disaster. It's how you manage that, and also manage your vineyards that are capable of being barrel fermented. And remember, there's barrel fermented, there's barrel aged and barrel fermented, two very different worlds. And I like to combine them, but they are very distinct in the way they influence a wine. And I've often found that people say, I read the write-ups in the older days, like the older days, it's not that long ago. Chardonnay's only been in the country about 40 years, I think it is. So what they were doing was they were making it in a way which, they tank fermented in stainless steel, which is terrible. Stainless steel fermenter is probably the worst, white wine fermenter, I think, from a breadth perspective. And then they'd bomb it into a barrel like they're making a red wine. And they'd filter it even, and then shove it into it, and that just made it taste like a sawmill, because that wood influence is so dominant. You need that barrel fermentation initially, which we go down to barrel right away, straight from the, it's not quite from the press. We settle out the real rough stuff, and then we put it into barrel, and it stays there. It's very lazy winemaking. But we do the barrel ferment.
If it works,
it works. And then we leave it there for up to 11 to 12 months. And everybody looks at me as if, well, isn't that going to over oak your wine? No, that actually allows you to integrate. And that integration of the lees and the barrel is really what changes the game. So I think we've evolved from a winemaking point of view. But let's not kid ourselves. There's a certain segment of the market right at the top end in the US that really adores a lot of wood. And those guys are commanding some serious prices.
And if you look at the Robert Parker effect, which is why a lot of people around the world, the Australians as well as ourselves, have made that style, is because of that influence directed by people like Parker, who do like that kind of Chardonnay that you squeeze out of the bottle rather than pour.
Absolutely, no, for sure. And there's a space for that. And the beauty about Chardonnay is the two ways of looking at it. I always get like these shivers down my spine when somebody says to me, it's a winemaker's grape. Yes, it can be. It can easily be a winemaker's grape. It's very simple to go and like lash on a whole lot of fancy French over toasted wood and hope for the best. Made that mistake myself a number of times. But I'll tell you that story in a second. But it's really a vineyard story. The fruit that can absorb wood and the way it works with wood is it's farmed. It comes from very specific sites. It's very transparent about how you manage it. And the further you step away from it, I think you get a better result. I think that's the evolution of my life, my career. My career is my life. We talk about, I've had a career in banking, or had a career in science, or whatever. My life is my career in winemaking. It has been for many, many years. So from that perspective, I'm not, I live it. I live what I do. And you cruise along in these whims and fancies of fashions in the world. So I made this one wine. I was doing a barrel experiment we've also in a very fortunate position as a company. We cut our own wood and we age our own wood, and then we get them contract cured. So it's been we can mix anything you can imagine. You name it, I can make a barrel for you the way you want. And I was doing a barrel trial on a very specific, the farm I was working on in California there's this one little acre portion of really nice Chardonnay, beautiful clone, everything. I was like, I'm just going to do this barrel trial on this piece. Nobody's going to know. Holy shit. People drank that stuff out of just doing it. And everybody's like, this is the best Chardonnay we've ever tasted in our life. So we bottled it, 100% brand new wood. And it shot the lights out. Talking about the Parker effect, it got the highest score I've ever got in my life. And I'm like, now it's bottled, and now you have to repeat this. I couldn't drink one glass of this stuff, but people just glammed onto it. So there's a space for that in the world of wine, which is what in the world of Chardonnay. I think there's very ethereal things that come out of the Chablis world and all the rest. And then you've got those bruises that people also adore. Not quite me, but we've evolved. We've evolved, and I think when we taste, we'll see there's definitely an evolution, and that's what today is all about. Is that sort of looking at that evolution over time, or where we end up.
Before we do taste, we've spoken a lot about wood. A quick word on terroir. If I look at the wine you're making, there's the grapes at home and Feinbosch on the clay. You're one of the people who uses the Heimansgat area. I think there are 82,000 people who allegedly have Chardonnay grapes from there. It is an extraordinary part of the Overberg. You've got grapes from the Klein Cru, from other parts of Stellenbosch. Not just different climates, but different terroirs. Some's clay, some's granite. You've got this selection. How do all of those pieces of the puzzle come together?
Well, the first thing is, which we're very pedantic about, is keeping every single lot as individual as possible, all the way through the sort of processing phase, from the pressing to settling to barrel fermentation to barrel aging. Everything is kept separate all the way through down the line. And only at the end do we blend it. So every vintage brings something new. Every vintage brings us something that shows a difference. But the inherent quality of these vineyards that we've kind of worked on over the last, going on 12 years almost. There's something to be said about high altitude vineyards and what they bring you from a structural point of view, and also from a length point of view. So when I put them all together, I look at, it's a personal thing. Often people ask me, okay, well, which wine? We do a couple of single vineyards just for our tasting room, and one or two select clients get one or two of our single vineyards, which we're actually going to expand on because it works quite well in the tasting room. But what the blend is really what makes me tick. And there's components out of Stellenbosch which I absolutely adore, and that's what becomes the majority. And then it's like building this framework, and then the salt and pepper and the little bits and pieces, the color in the picture comes in from all these other different vineyard sites. Because all those soils, all those elevations, all those clones bring different components to it. And in a single varietal, blending allows you to get a depth of complexity and a little bit more depth to your wine. So it's not a simple, it's not easy for me to say, okay, this one brings that. It's really, once it's all on the table and the vintage is expressing itself, that you'll really get the real story. So,
talking about wine is thirsty work. Time for some breakfast, and as ever, my favorite kind of breakfast comes in a glass. The Capensis story is now a decade old, taking South African expertise, American expertise, and combining them with some of our best terroir to give us what really is world-renowned Chardonnay. And we can certainly say that now, Graham, but when you began this South African journey, you'd come back from America, you were starting off this new adventure with wine. What were the expectations? What did you think you could pull off? What did you hope to pull off?
I had no idea. I knew there were some nice vineyards, but we saw some stuff, and I remember I was commuting still between California and here. I had a day job and a night job. South Africa was a night job, and my day job in California.
At least it's a nice, easy commute.
It's a lovely commute from the West Coast. A long drive, but anyway, so we actually didn't quite know what we were going to do. We had an idea. There was a couple of frowns in the corporate offices about what you're going to go do down in South Africa. But it allowed me to come down for a nice chunk of time. I came down for 2 months in the harvest time and vinified this stuff. And we used contract space to press and to do the fermentations. And then after 2 months, I got to go back. It was about 4 weeks of harvest, and then I go back to my day job, which had a lot of stuff going on, and then I'd come back, and holy smokes, this is some pretty decent stuff, and come back and taste, and the folks we were using to do our sort of maintenance of the wines and barrel and all the rest were doing a pretty decent job. I was like, damn, this is actually quite cool. Pull some samples, take it back to California, and everyone's like stood up, and this is the wine that was the start of it.
This was the very
first wine that we made. And we only had new barrels. We had no second forward because we had none. We didn't have this whole winery in stock that we have in California that we had down here. And it's near impossible to buy barrels in South Africa, second full white barrels. People look at you as you've got like 10 heads, let alone 5 eyes. And I actually yesterday sold a whole lot of barrels to a guy. The first time we've sold barrels, I sold 30 of them all the way back to 13 because they're just not available. And so we had tank ferments, which I don't like, and a couple of barrel ferments, which are quite overbearing. So the blending of this was pretty tough. But I think ultimately what I realized in 13 is there's some real serious wine floating around in this country and fruit available on the Chardonnay side.
Now, when you come in to start this new project, where is the middle ground between this is where I think I would like to end up in terms of the style of wine, the interpretation, and this is what the grapes, the terroir are saying to me in terms of what we should be making?
Well, it gets down to what like I said to you earlier. I don't ever go in with a preconceived idea. You can't allow yourself to do that. If you've got this idea that you want to kind of manipulate a wine into a space and a place, they always feel like they manipulated wines. So again, like I said, I keep everything separate right from the word go, so I can assess exactly where things are going to be over time. I'm trying to think how it all came together. It's just, we realized we had something pretty damn special, especially from the Stellenbosch fruit. It was just, this is pretty amazing stuff here. So and I don't visualize it like I read a couple of interviews over the last week or so about you visualize your wine and you try and put it together. I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't visualize anything like that. I visualize what I want to do with what the raw materials I have on the table on the day that I'm blending. And then I do that over a period of time, about 3-4 weeks, where we blend, come back, and we build the wine slowly but surely over time. don't physically blend. It's all bench trials. And we love the bench trials.
Let's try this particular wine, which has a number of reasons to be celebrated. First of all, it is the first one. It's a decade in. But also, it does what great Chardonnay really should, which is a mere 10 years later, still be in robust health.
No, for sure. And it's actually older than that. Yeah, it's been in the trade now for 10 years. So this is over almost 12 years now.
There is a freshness to this it's almost disconcerting.
It's astounding. It really is astounding. I haven't tried this in a chunk of time now. I haven't tried. We don't have a lot of it left. A pretty La Colombe took a lot of it. They sort of, how much do you have? We told them how much, and they said, well, we'll take it all. And they took it over time. But they've pretty much depleted everything we've got. I think I've got 24 bottles left or something like that.
So tell me why for you, as you look back, I'm sure with a no small degree of nostalgia, why it's held so well, why it was such a great start for Capensis.
Well, if there's one thing that I had in mind, it's there's ageability has to be there. And that's what today's all about, is to really assess. We haven't done this as a company. We haven't done this in the winery. We haven't done this in the tasting room. This is the first time we're showing, with our pants down, everything that we've made. And the one goal was, these things can't go brown. So everything that I put into, all the focus is, I despise a brown white wine. I find it to be, like a brown, overly extracted yellow characters. So everything that I do in the winery, and I can really say what I did here, because I was man alone when I made these wines. I was like, Jesus, I was here. Nobody helping me. I was just doing, which was pretty cool. From doing what I was doing in California at the time to where I went right back to when I started. It was all about managing the fact that I wanted these wines to stay fresh for many, many, many years. And that's the goal. And that has been the goal from the word go.
Have a look at your day today. Chances are you had an early morning, you had a school run to get to, perhaps an 8 o'clock board meeting or spreadsheets first thing. Well, my day has been even tougher because I'm drinking a decade worth of world-class Chardonnay. And having had the 2013 Capensis, the very first Capensis Chardonnay, which has held up almost as well as its youthful winemaker, it's time to find out how the wine is looking from its latest iteration. And when you look back, I think it can be not just with a huge amount of pride, because this Capensis story has become such an important one for South African Chardonnay, but also I'm sure with that real fond warmth of, hey, this is my journey. This is something I've taken from, it wasn't here a decade ago.
And it's a cool thing. First, I'm very chuffed that Barbara kept on funding it, because it costs a lot of money to do it. What we've done here is amazing. I remember one write-up that said, the Americans are coming in. Just when we launched the 13, the Americans had come in at whatever the price was that we launched at. It was an aspirational price point. And there was some guy who did some back of the Peter Stuyvesant box calculation that they're going to run away with, I think it was 8 or 9 million rand, and we'll never see them again. If that dude knows what we've plowed back into the South African wine trade, I'm just extremely grateful that Barbara's stuck with us, and the family's stuck with the Jackson family is stuck with us, and has allowed me to do to get to where we are today. And the investment's been staggering and done very deliberately, and not nothing ostentatious. We don't have some gargoyled winery floating around with a moat. We don't have that.
Which I think you're missing, really. I'd
love to see one.
And that's why I haven't been to visit you.
Exactly. Just a little griffin throwing out a little stream. That'll be fantastic.
No surprise that they've gone the distance. Firstly, Jackson is not a fly-by-night wine business. No. It's an institution in California. Yeah. But also, they only have to have the very glasses that we are to realize that they're not just onto something good now, but something that is going to continue for the foreseeable future. And I think the real evidence of that is as we drink the latest installation of Chardonnay.
This is the latest release that's coming out now at the end of Feb. And this is 2021. So like I said, we hold things back. And that also sent a lot of people frowning. But to answer your question, your previous question, this is the belief that we have in what we're doing. We really do believe it's better to hold things back and to release that. That thing's still super, super tight, and it's going to go the distance. I don't fear of where this is going to go in the next 10, 15 years.
I
think that's what excites me about it, and that's what I feel is like the body of work that you're forever and a day. I'm going to be hooked into this thing, and my name's going to be hooked into this thing. So I've got to be. I'm pretty proud about the way we're going to be, and how we're going to go down the line. And I'm extremely nervous about showing all these wines today, but I think we'll be right. I think just tasting these two, I'm like, shit, maybe the weather, the altitude maybe helps a bit.
I look at my kids, they're 8 and 10, it feels like yesterday they were newlyborns resting one arm, and now they ignore their father and shout at him and refuse to let me watch anything I want to watch on TV. Yeah. But you watch that growth and you watch that development. Is that an apt analogy for how you watch your wine unfold?
Absolutely, and I think it's very much an evolution of not just me, but the group and the team that has evolved as well. You know, the team of people that, as it was a me, myself, and I for the first couple of years, and now we're in a much bigger team, and we focus in a lot more on getting every single aspect. Well, you never get it 100% right, but if we get it 89, 90% right all the time, we're pretty stoked with what we're doing. But that's the job, and it's the evolution of the team of people around me as well. And don't forget that imprint also translates through to the wine. You know, the way, and I get quite philosophical about that. The way people farm a vineyard. Don't forget, all our vineyards are hand farmed. We don't mechanically farm these things. That imprint of the guy that's walking through. Don't forget a guy that's walking through a row, as they call them in California, a line. If a guy's doing a row of leafing and canopy management, that's his interpretation. So that's a small component of his little story as well that influences things. And if that translates all the way through, and we're doing the right thing all the way down the line, hopefully we end up where we want to be. But I really embrace that sort of nuance. You can't be so draconian. When I was younger in my career, I was like very draconian about, I want 1.5 and a 3/4 leaf exposure kind of bullshit. You know, it's crazy. You know, and I was adamant about, you know, the way the canopy had to be, and I used to drive a lot of my Hispanic friends absolutely batshit crazy about trying to get things together. I've moved on from that, and I'm actually embracing that this is a handmade product, and handmade products have different interpretations on it, and I think that's the evolution that we're trying to see as well. And I think, you know, but you can taste the wines; they've evolved. You know, there's an evolution, there's an arc, which I'm happy about.
It's been a quite remarkable opening decade, and we now sit able to look back on those 10 years with some truly fantastic wine. What are the next 10 years and beyond? Are we looking at the Capensis Zinfandel on the horizon?
No, look, there is an evolution. I think the one marketing aspect that has come through the system is we need a partner to this. And we need some sort of partner. So the evolution is going to be, we are experimenting with a little bit of Stellenbosch Cab. You know, again, it was one of those trips that Barbara was down here, and I poured her 1 or 2 wines, and she's like, I want that. I want some of that. And so we are experimenting with Stellenbosch Cab. We've got 2 vintages. You know, we've got a vintage in barrel and a vintage in bottle. I won't release the first vintage, and the one that's in barrel, there might be a small component that will come out. But initially, very, very small. Don't see where that goes. Because I think from the sales team, getting out with one variety has been a little bit of a challenge in the sense that because you're not giving people a lot of choices. So I think we'll start looking at that. But we're not going to, you know, there won't be a Zin, there won't be a Pinotage, there won't be a Pinot, there won't be, you know, there won't be a Sauvignon Blanc, there won't be anything like that. I think at this stage of the game, it's going to be pretty much Chardonnay with a little bit of Cabernet. It helps with dinner parties as well, you know. Otherwise, you're pouring. What we're doing, all our functions, we're actually importing a lot of our French stuff or our Californian stuff to pair with some of our dinners that we do. And they reciprocate as well. They take a lot of our stuff and pour it in Bordeaux, which is also quite exciting in a way. So.
Well, I can see why they would be doing that. Graham, it's a wonderful story you've had over the 10 years. It shows in the wine, it shows in your very clear passion for and enthusiasm for what you're doing. I'm looking forward to trying that cab when it comes out. But until then, I'm more than happy because whether it's the 2013 or the brand new 21, they're both not just superb wines in their own right, but they're just such important components of our resurgence of Chardonnay in South Africa.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. Yeah, enjoy breakfast.
Thank you. So there we go. 10 years we've been drinking this Capensis wine. And what I love about it, above all, is it's another great example of South Africa shoring up America.